Chapter 691. Sitting, Ethan tapped on the armchair. Continue. How many times have you launched an attack in total? He gave me a mission to kill Connor. But you hid Connor after that, so I didn't have the chance to execute my mission. That person then told me to think of a way to kill Olivia. The Black Ravens incident was a wake-up call to him. I didn't have the chance to take action until he suddenly contacted me to do something to her car and disguise it as an accident. You guys know what happened after that. I sensed something off, so I played along with it. I plotted this up at the old factory by the sea. As soon as Black Fox finished, Kelvin punched his chest. You told us a lot, but they're all useless information. Don't make me violent. Get to the point. Who is he? A streak of blood flowed from the corner of Black Fox's lips. It's not that I don't want to tell you, but he's a careful person. I've never seen his face before. We normally keep in touch through phone calls. He uses a voice changer too. I can't tell if he's a man or a woman, or an old person or a kid. You don't know his identity, but I bet you at least know how to contact him. Ethan touched his wedding ring. You caught on to the fact that my men were following you. How did you contact him? Don't tell me that you don't know either. I don't have much patience to play games with you. He normally contacts me first. He always uses foreign numbers, and you can never track his exact IP address. There is a way to contact him, which is to contact another migrant smuggler. Who? Black Fox was reluctant to reveal the name. After all, he would be considered going against the rule by spilling the name. If I tell you the name, will you be able to protect my brother? His way of doing things is malicious. Since you can find out about my brother, he can do the same too. You have my word. Who's the migrant smuggler? Polaris has mercenary soldiers all over the globe, working in different lines of industry. Most of them are prominent figures in their industry too, like lawyers and doctors. It's difficult to track them. Aside from Cameron, I need more information about this person. What's his name? I only know his code name Rubus. How can we meet him? He's very mysterious. I've known him for so many years, but I've never met him in person. He either calls me or passes the message to Mr. Lancer to give me missions. Okay, you lure Mr. Lancer out. Then, I'll guarantee your brother's safety for a lifetime. He'll have a smooth life too. The crickets sang under the night sky. Olivia was sitting on the swing in the yard, surrounded by blooming flowers. There was a dim light. It had been days since she received a phone call from Ethan. He didn't contact her thereafter. Although she was aware that he was still alive, she couldn't help but worry. Jessica and Daryl were abusing their authority in the mansion while Janice was closing herself off. Anxiety was plaguing Olivia 24/7. She didn't let go of her phone for even a moment the whole day, feeling that she might miss a phone call from Ethan. Gazing at the gray clouds that shrouded the moonlight, she felt pressure from the darkness. She rubbed her stomach, which was hurting more and more as time passed. She thought that it wasn't as simple as gastric. These frequent stomachaches could be a result of her overthinking and nervousness. The number of stomachaches was increasing, and not even medicines could save it off. Harold's birthday banquet was tomorrow. According to his plan, he would reveal Daryl's identity. Would Ethan return tomorrow? While she was deeply absorbed in her thoughts, a man's breath brushed her ear. What are you doing here instead of sleeping, Olivia? Are you waiting for me? Chapter 692. Olivia, who was deeply absorbed in her thoughts, was taken by surprise. She hopped off the swing. Straightening her back, she watched the man with alarm. Her eyebrows were knitted. Don't come near me. Instead of staying away from her, he slowly approached her step by step. He casually sized her. Ethan is lucky to have a beauty like you. If I were him, I would have looked after you with love and care. I'd never betray and upset you. The crease between Olivia's brows deepened. What are you talking about? Daryl had been seeking a chance to approach her these days. Unlucky for him, Olivia and Janice kept cooping themselves up in their rooms. Now, he finally had the chance to approach Olivia, hence the smug expression on his face. What are you pretending for? Before this, it was huge news that Ethan divorced you to marry Marina Carlton. I can understand why you women keep forgiving men as long as they look back at you. I bet you don't feel entirely comfortable on the inside, though. How could he impregnate another woman while pretending to be in love with you? Each and every word from him hurt her deeply. Olivia's head was a mess. She didn't know what had happened. She had a guess that Daryl could be making up a story because Ethan wasn't around right now. Despite knowing Daryl's ill intentions, she was hurt by his remarks. Shut up, Olivia, I know that you're angry because this is the truth. Frankly speaking, Ethan isn't coming back. Otherwise, why hasn't he done anything after so many days? Think about it. How long can Janice protect you? He added haughtily, yes, the Proctors are rich and influential in other countries. But don't forget that she was expelled from her family 2 decades ago. She's no longer one of them, and there will be no place for her to stay in the Miller residence. Soon, we'll drive her out of here. When that happens, she won't be able to fend for herself. And how will she be able to look after you, a mere orphan? The word, orphan, was jarring to Olivia's ears as she clenched her fists tightly. Olivia, I heard that you don't have any family in Aldenvine, do you? Allow me to offer some advice. Since Ethan is dead, why don't you come with me? You're still young and pretty. I can look after you for a lifetime. How's that? Daryl couldn't help himself from reaching out for her face. She instinctively grabbed his wrist, dislocating it. He glared at her, furious. How dare you hurt me? You're insane. She looked at his dislocated wrist. Her action was done out of instinct. How was she able to do that? The same thing happened when she encountered the person splashing acid in the mall. Her body dodged it of its own accord before she could register the situation. Olivia let him go. Shut your fat mouth up. Next time, I'll dislocate your jaw too. She turned and left after that, not wanting to interact with him any further. The glint in Daryl's eyes shone brighter in the darkness, but it went unnoticed by her. Putting up with her stomachache, she kept repeating his words in her head. Who's Marina? Ethan impregnated another woman. We divorced. How could this be? I saw our wedding photo with my own eyes, and Ethan is deeply in love with me. Every move he makes tells me how much he loves me. How could he have an affair? Despite her doubts, she took her phone out to look up Marina and Ethan online. Chapter 693. While Olivia was looking up Ethan and Marina's names online, her mind was full of his affectionate expression. However, her body was trembling instinctively the moment she clicked the word, search. Her unconsciousness was telling her that she was afraid, but she didn't know what she was afraid. Was she afraid that what Daryl said was the truth? Right when the articles were going to pop up, she thought her heart was going to jump out of her chest. Soon, the articles were shown. Despite Olivia's nervousness, there was no information related to Ethan and Marina. Olivia deleted the search column to look up Ethan and Marina separately. Based on a webpage regarding Ethan, Olivia's name was clearly stated as his spouse. There was also a tag about the recent announcement that she was his hidden wife. She heaved a sigh of relief, reprimanding herself for thinking nonsense. She figured that Daryl was making up a story to drive a wedge between her and Ethan while Ethan wasn't around. In order to verify her guess, she deleted his name and typed Marina's name. As soon as Olivia finished typing Marina's name, Janice's voice resounded behind her. Liv, what are you doing? I'm looking into someone. Who? You can ask me. Olivia showed Janice her phone without hiding anything. A woman named Marina Carlton. Why are you bringing her up all of a sudden? Janice remained smiling, but her heart missed a beat. I bumped into Daryl downstairs a moment ago. He mentioned a few things, about how Ethan was having an affair with Marina. Mom, is this true? Of course not. Don't listen to his nonsense. That brat is no less different from his mother. They can do anything just to ruin someone's relationship. Back then, Kenneth, that bastard, had feelings for me. But he divorced me because Jessica caused a rift between us. Only then was Olivia relieved. I see. I guess all Daryl knows to do is say bad things. Liv, don't bottle up everything. You can ask me anything. Olivia nodded. Is there someone called Marina Carlton, though? There is. She's my old friend's daughter. They're friends with the Millers. Don't tell me that she and Ethan grew up together. Nonsense. Ethan hadn't seen her for 10 years. How could you say that they grew up together? You're the only person he loves. We should have faith in him. Okay, but Mom, the birthday banquet is tomorrow. If Ethan doesn't come back, I'm afraid it'll put him at a disadvantage. Don't worry, he knows what he's doing. All we have to do is support him and not cause him trouble. Let Daryl and Janice be the clowns all they want. I'm sick of wasting my time on them. Come, let's put on a facial mask. We should be the belles of the ball tomorrow. Olivia chuckled as the weight in her chest was lifted. Sure, there were all kinds of people in the underground casino, which was called Sleepless City. The deeper one explored, the more chips one would need. The number of people would decrease too. Ethan, Brent, and the others disguised themselves and splurged money in the casino. Ethan won every single round, and the people around him no longer played against him. They followed his bets. After he won the 18th round, an ordinary-looking man walked out of the crowd with a straightened back. Sir, you seem to be on the roll. Would you like to play a game downstairs? Chapter 694. The man's appearance corresponded to Black Fox's description of Mr. Lancer. Ethan raised an eyebrow. The fake mustache on his face masked his aura. He tossed the chips in his hand and responded brusquely, "Count me in." Although Cameron Lancer looked ordinary, his eyes were shrewd. He smiled faintly upon hearing Ethan's answer. The glint that flashed across his eyes indicated that the prey had taken the bait. Cameron looked at Ethan's chips. "But I'm afraid you don't have enough chips yet." Brent chimed in haughtily, "He's loaded with cash. Show us the way." Noticing that Brent was another prey swimming in cash, Cameron deemed that it was his lucky day today. He led Brent the way to exchange chips worth $3 million. Then, Cameron led the group downstairs. The farther they went, the fewer people they saw. It was safe to say that the game would be more confidential and come with bigger bets. Brent reminded Cameron, "There are no surveillance cameras, right? Small bets can be seen as entertainment, but my friend here might be crippled if his grandfather finds out that it's a huge bet." Cameron could tell that Ethan came from a well-off family from his lavish outfit. It was the best way to earn money through this kind of person. He replied hurriedly, "I understand. There are no surveillance cameras downstairs. I bet you'll be able to have the time of your life there." Next, he beckoned over two sexy women. "Mandy and Sandy are the ones who bring the most luck here. Would you like them to be in your company?" Ethan was displeased at how the women were going to come near him. "Get them away from me. I'm not down for this." The women retreated in a grievance. He snorted coldly, "I'm here to rake in money, not mess around." "Of course. This way, please." Cameron nodded while smiling before showing Ethan the way. The elevator door opened, revealing the strict internal surveillance. Cameron reminded them, "Please stop here for a moment. Based on the rules, only the client is allowed to enter." Calvin wanted to say something, but Ethan stopped him with a look. Calvin muttered in displeasure, "How troublesome." "Sorry, sir. This is the rule." Cameron helped Ethan to carry his chips. Ethan played with his wedding ring casually. "Are you sure that there are no surveillance cameras here? I don't want my grandfather to get his hand on any leaked footage." "Rest assured, sir. May I know your name?" "Craig Sallow." "What an unusual surname. You don't sound local. Are you trying to pry into my background?" No. It's because it's my first time seeing you." Cameron chuckled. "Where do you normally frequent?" Cameron and Black Fox were smart. Every question they asked was an attempt to pry more information. Cameron had brought Ethan to the third floor in the basement. The real bosses were downstairs. Obviously, Cameron was trying to find out how rich Ethan was while attempting to pry into his personal information. Unfortunately, the casino wasn't Ethan's target. He was coming after Cameron. "Where's the toilet?" "Over there." Ethan made sure that there were no surveillance cameras before contacting Brent. "Shit, why is there no tissue?" "Please give me a moment, sir," Cameron replied. The second he handed a tissue paper to Ethan, Ethan grabbed his elbow. Cameron defended himself with quick moves, but Ethan was prepared for that as he tightened his grasp. He managed to keep Cameron under control in no time. Cameron intended to scream for help, but Ethan fettered his hands behind him and had him at gunpoint. Ethan lowered his voice. Stay still. Don't move. Chapter 695. As Black Fox had said, there were all kinds of people in Polaris. Not all of its members were skillful in martial arts. Some of them acted as an informant while some of them acted as a middleman, some of them were in charge of the early stage of the tasks while some of them were in charge of executing them. Cameron was under Ethan's control in a fleeting second. He spilled some tea under Ethan's threat. From there, Ethan found out that Rubus was in the same city as well. Sir, my authority only allows me to contact Rubus. He'll never meet me. I'm just the middleman. Please spare my life. Ethan exchanged glances with Brent, and the latter understood what he meant. As long as Rubus was in this city, they would track down his whereabouts through his number. It wouldn't be difficult to catch him. Brent immediately prepared the devices. In case Cameron rebelled, Ethan took a syringe and approached him. What are you going to do? Do as I say. If you snitch on us, I'll have you taste what it feels like to be in hell. Plus, your newborn baby will go to hell with you too. Understood. Make the phone call longer. If it's less than 1 minute, I'll kill you. Yes, sir. The greatest advantage of confronting sly people like Cameron was that they were not as stubborn as mercenary soldiers. While buttering someone up was their forte, they were volatile. Once everything was ready with the devices connected, Cameron began dialing the number. According to Cameron, Rubus' contact number often changed. A number would be used for 10 days at most before it was cancelled. He and Rubus happened to be in contact a few days ago. The line got through. Brent's heart was racing. They finally had a lead after looking into it for so long. It was nerve-wracking considering that they could finally hear that person's voice. The other party was very careful. It would take a single mistake to alarm him. Kelvin, who had always been the carefree man, was so jittery that he held his breath. Cameron hung up the call after it beeped 3 times. Ethan raised the gun at Cameron's forehead menacingly. Got a death wish. Patience, sir. This is our secret code. He will only pick up the call after I call him 3 times. This is how it works every time. The other party finally answered the call at the 3rd beep after Cameron called 3 times. As Black Fox had said, Rubus used a voice changer, so they couldn't know whether he was a man or a woman. Hello, boss, Black Fox finally contacted me. Cameron sounded distressed. What for? Rubus was calm, seemingly an emotionally stable person. This kind of person was the scariest kind. He told me that he needs to talk to you in person about something. Do you have time? Someone like him wants to talk to me in person. He should know his place. Just turn it down with an excuse. Noticing that Rubus was going to hang up the call, Ethan held the gun closer to Cameron. Trembling, Cameron added, Boss, I think he has something important to tell you. He told me that he has an idea to make you agree to this request. He said he'll complete the mission by tomorrow. As a middleman, he didn't know the details of the mission. Rubus contemplated for a moment before saying, Fine, tell him to contact me. Okay, the casino is swarmed with clients at the moment, and I don't know where Black Fox is. I will tell him to contact you as soon as I find him. Okay, Rubus terminated the call. Will this do? Cameron was drenched in sweat. Ignoring him, Ethan looked at Brent. How is it? Found him. He's at Emerald Villa of Seaside Streets in Gordham. Let's move. Remember, don't alarm him. Ethan's gaze landed upon Black Fox. Contact him 3 minutes later to distract him. Kelvin made the arrangements. The helicopter is ready. You can fly to Seaside Streets in 5 minutes. Chapter 696. Ethan raised a finger. Let's move. Contact each other if there's anything. Got it. Kelvin left with the bodyguards. But there was no sign of excitement on Ethan's expression, only tranquility. After going against Rubus a few times, Ethan realized that Rubus was a careful person. If Ethan wanted to win, there would be no room for mistakes. Brent, look into his residence. See if there's any problem. Okay, Mr. Miller. Brent's fingers danced across the keyboard. Soon, he found out the exact location of the residence. He zoomed in to see a mansion by the sea. The scenery was breathtaking. "Mr. Miller, look. This is the place. Find out who the owner is." On it, Ethan controlled the cursor to observe the building. There are woods behind the house. The house is facing the sea. Be careful not to lose him. Got it. I'll inform Kelvin of the details. Ethan touched his wedding ring. This was their best chance to capture that person. Ethan couldn't afford to let him escape. As long as he could get rid of this dangerous person, Connor and Olivia would be safe. Thus, he couldn't afford to lose this fight. 3 minutes later, Kelvin was already approaching the mansion. Ethan gave Black Fox a look. "It's your turn. Remember, don't spout nonsense." Similar to before, Black Fox called 3 times before the call was answered. "Hello, boss, it's me." Black Fox lowered his voice. There was nothing out of particular with his tone. Brent stared at the monitor, ensuring the other party wasn't moving to other places. Rubus remained at the same spot. Besides, he answered the call on the balcony. They could hear the waves pounding and the vague helicopter sound. Kelvin was going to land above Rubus while Black Fox tried to distract him. "Tomorrow is Mr. Miller Sr.'s birthday banquet. It'll be a lively party. I'm thinking of taking action at that time." The details. Rubus didn't want to waste his time on the useless descriptions. "This is the plan. I've got myself the blueprint of the Miller residence. Tomorrow, Black Fox explained slowly like how Ethan had taught him. The sound of the door sliding could be heard from the other side of the line. Someone was obviously on the balcony. They didn't know if he was looking at the helicopter. "How confident are you that it'll be a success?" 80%. "Ethan's dead. No one can protect her. As long as I can intrude into the place." Intruders. It became noisy on the other side of the line before Black Fox could finish his words. The call was hung up right there. "Don't worry, Mr. Miller. We can watch the scene through the device worn on Kelvin's head." Brent displayed the footage on full screen. Rubus reacted quickly as the first thing he did was take defense. Brent connected the microphone to the balcony on the west. "Quick. Got it." Tonight's movement was different from their attack on Olivia. Ethan took them off guard by intruding on their headquarters. At the same time, cars were driven over there to send help. They were planning to root the enemies out today. Ethan couldn't sit still and do nothing. "Keep an eye on both of them. I'm going over there. Be careful, Mr. Miller. There's no room for mistakes. I have to personally catch him tonight." Ethan vanished into the darkness. Chapter 697. Ethan didn't stop for a moment at all. Even though it was late at night, he showed no sign of exhaustion. The thought of living a happy life with Olivia after catching the mastermind spurred him to rush to seaside streets as soon as possible. The car was driven in the darkness at full pelt. There were a lot of cars on the street, carrying hundreds of people who then surrounded the whole mansion. Ethan alighted from the car hurriedly before dashing over. The smell of trees and blood lingered in the salty sea breeze that brushed past those men's faces. They worked for Ethan. "What's the situation?" asked Ethan anxiously. Cyril walked out of the crowd. "Mr. Miller, that person was injured and jumped off the sea. Kelvin and the others are after him." Ethan's brows knitted, not expecting such an accident after making so much preparation for it. "Take me there." Karma always found its way to its prey. Previously, Olivia was forced to jump into the sea. Now, it was the mastermind's turn. "Did you see that person's face?" inquired Ethan. Pursing his lips, Cyril looked hesitant. "We had the wrong idea the whole time. Rubus isn't a man but a woman." "A woman? Yes. I'm not sure if I'm mistaken, but Rubus looks like someone from the back." "Like who?" "Like Miss Miller." Ethan failed to control his expression at that. "What did you say?" "Of course, I'm not saying that she's Miss Miller. They look similar based on their heights and physiques. We didn't see her face." Ethan tightened his fists, and veins protruded along his arms. He closed his eyes. Memories of their farewell in the mountain filled his mind. Leia had her back to him, asking him to pretend that he didn't have a sister because there was no turning back for her. But why? Previously, she had been hiding in secrecy by Ethan's side. She became a janitor and protected him. If she plotted all of this, why would she think of killing him too? Ethan's instinct told him that there was no way Leah would do that. But judging from her motives, there was enough reason for her to do that. Leah resented Olivia, so Leah might have begun hating him because of that. Could it really be her? He wondered. He gazed at the sea under the somber sky. Like a beast, the sea was swallowing everything. Ethan felt empty, as though someone had dug his heart out. He initially thought that the mastermind had something to do with Olivia's family background. But could it be that he had gone in the wrong direction since the beginning? The morning sun rose. Today was Harold's birthday banquet. The maids had gotten busy early in the morning. Olivia didn't have a good night's sleep. It could be because she was worried about Ethan, or that Daryl's words had made her uneasy. Her stomach ached from time to time the whole night. She figured that she couldn't wait anymore. She decided to take an endoscopy test after Harold's birthday banquet. It was early in the morning, but her complexion looked bad. She covered her eye bags with foundation. She checked her phone, but there were still no messages or calls from Ethan. Is he still not going to come back today? She wondered. Compared to Olivia's concern, Janice appeared rather happy. She had changed into a cocktail dress and tied her hair into a bun before complementing it with accessories. She was already slim to begin with, but the dress embraced her body and defined each of her curves. She didn't look like a mother with 2 adult sons. Despite the plain dress, Olivia felt that Janice was cool after giving up on love. Chapter 698. Janice chose a cocktail dress for Olivia too. Different from Janice's dark green dress, Olivia's was white. Wearing white pearl earrings and the bracelet that was specially meant for Mrs. Miller, Olivia seemed like the prettiest flower of all. Meanwhile, it was Jessica's first time attending the Millers' event as Mrs. Miller Sr. She looked like a jewelry model with all the accessories she donned. It was as if she was afraid that others wouldn't know that she was rich. She hoped she had more heads and arms to flex her wealth with all her accessories. The Miller family hadn't made an official announcement, but word had gotten out within the circle. Janice had been resting in the Miller residence after getting dumped. Harold was already old, but his son worried him. In the end, Jessica managed to become Mrs. Miller Sr. So what if Janice was married to Kenneth early on? After trying to win his heart for so many years, she still divorced in the end. Janice hadn't shown herself yet, but there were a lot of nosy people in the hall. Everyone was fawning over Jessica. Although she was never acknowledged by the Millers, she managed to make herself known as Mrs. Miller Sr. Previously, everyone would mock her behind her back by claiming that she was a shameless homewrecker. Now, she was able to hold her head high after becoming the official Mrs. Miller Sr. Even if they looked down on her, they were deeply impressed by her hard-won achievement. Mrs. Miller Sr., what's your skincare routine? You don't look like your age at all. You're different from us. Not even an iron could smoothen our wrinkles. Jessica laughed heartily. You're putting yourself down, Mrs. Gill. That's exaggerating. I try to stay positive and keep up with my exercise routine, so my complexion looks good. I don't like beauty salons. Taking too much dermal fillers will make our face look stiff. That's right. You're a natural beauty, Mrs. Miller Sr. Mr. Miller Sr.'s love for you never changed despite so many years. Unlike us, you're lucky. No one loves us, so we need cosmetics to get through our life. I know, right? I heard that Mr. Miller Sr. is head over heels for you. The custom-made gown you're wearing is worth tens of thousands, isn't it? Talking about it, what a tragic life Mrs. Miller Sr. has. She married Mr. Miller Sr. a long time ago, but someone else took her place for so many years. Mr. Miller Sr.'s ex-wife is a mad woman. She threatens others by saying that she'll commit suicide out of the blue. She should have accepted the fact that Mr. Miller Sr. didn't love her long ago. Why is she always throwing a tantrum? She shouldn't be here today. Her presence is a bad omen. I wonder how she is right now. It's been over 20 years since we last saw her. I bet her life is nothing like Mrs. Miller Sr. The more they spoke ill of Janice, the happier Jessica was. She had waited so many years for today. In the face of everyone's respect for her, she figured that her sacrifice was worth it. From today onward, no one would laugh at her for her origin and cruel means. Only the winner had the right to write a new chapter in life. She would become the person everyone admired and flattered. While the heated discussion was going on, Harold, the man of the hour, finally appeared in a wheelchair. He seemed slightly tired. He might have not been able to rest well for the past few days, hence the low spirit. Two women stood next to him, Janice and Olivia. They looked different yet equally gorgeous. Like the moon in the sky, they seemed unapproachable to others. Those people calling Janice a mad woman before were at a loss for words. To their surprise, Janice's appearance hadn't changed much. The years offered a unique kind of patience to her. It wasn't only her aura, but her whole existence was beautiful. She stood with Olivia in the same frame, looking like sisters whose styles were polar opposites. All eyes were on them. Kenneth and Daryl, who were standing from afar, were put into a trance while looking at them. Chapter 699. Time seemed to cease. Janice's and Olivia's beauty was too surreal to be true. One of them was like a flower blooming in spring while the other was like the moon in fall. Kenneth's fingers tightened around his wine glass. It felt like a dream to him. He began doubting if that was the Janice he knew. Countless images of Janice smashing items and her anguished screams played in his mind. His memories of her had always been of her begging him not to go or her scolding and humiliating Jessica. Now, her cold gaze swept across the crowd like that of a superior woman. It didn't stay on him for a second. It was so unfamiliar that it seemed like they were strangers. On the other hand, Daryl was staring at Olivia in a daze. He was aware of how pretty she was, but he didn't expect her to turn into a belle in that minimalistic dress. As she looked at everyone with an indifferent gaze, she ignited his sense of competitiveness for some reason. The three's appearance drew everyone's attention. Janice's situation was completely different from people's description, especially when they saw that she was standing by Harold's side. Jessica, Mrs. Miller Sr., couldn't even come near him. She had dolled herself up, even getting a manicure. However, Janice managed to impress everyone with her inherent grace as someone who grew up in a rich family. Compared to Janice, Jessica was like a Christmas tree. Jessica wore the most expensive gown and a lot of accessories. All of them fell silent upon Harold's appearance. Jessica didn't miss how Kenneth was stunned by Janice's beauty. Jessica almost crushed all her teeth from clenching her jaw. In order to let everyone know that she was the host, she lifted her gown and approached Harold. A sweet smile was plastered on her face. "Dad, why didn't you call me to bring you over?" She walked toward behind the wheelchair, pushing Janice away unobtrusively to show her position in the Miller family. Janice disapproved of Jessica and commented in her head, "Attention seeker." Janice figured that Jessica was waiting for her to get mad and humiliate her in front of everyone. That way, Jessica would be able to make up an excuse to put herself down to earn everyone's sympathy. Jessica was never tired of this kind of play, but unfortunately for her, Janice didn't even spare her a glance. Since Jessica was trying to be a good daughter-in-law, Janice gladly took the chance to enjoy her freedom. Janice turned and left without a care of the world. At the same time, Harold was wearing a long face because Ethan hadn't shown up. Jessica thought that it was her win, hence the warm salutation. It made Olivia's skin crawl and worsened her gastric. She whispered a few words to Harold before he waved his hand gently at her. "Go ahead, grab something to eat. You're too skinny." Nodding, Olivia headed to the food section under watchful eyes. She left Jessica alone with her one-man show. Even so, Jessica was in a good mood as she thought that no one could waver her position in the Miller family. She was planning to drive Janice out of the house once the banquet was over to take her revenge. Olivia grabbed some food and sat on the couch. She had taken medicines before this. They staved off the pain in the beginning, but they weren't helping much right now. It hurt so much that she drew a sharp breath. She drank some warm water to alleviate the discomfort. "Olivia, you don't look well. Are you all right?" Chapter 700. It was Daryl again. Olivia lifted her head and shot him a cold gaze. "Is anything the matter?" He was wearing a white suit. In addition to his good looks, others perceived him as a gentleman. She was the only person who knew how evil his intentions were beneath that facade. "Why are you giving me the cold shoulder? I'm just worried about you." Didn't I tell you that I'll dislocate your jaw if you aren't careful with your words? He touched his wrist instinctively. You look cold, but you have quite a temper. It makes me curious about something. Does your character change this much in bed as well? As soon as he finished, Olivia splashed the glass of warm water in her hand onto Daryl's face. Despite her small action, everyone turned to them within a fleeting second. The two were involved in the gossip, so people's eyes were always on them. Jessica, whose expression had changed, hurried over to them. Liv, what's going on here? Did my son do anything to you? You're humiliating him in public. Daryl only dared to show his true colors in front of Olivia. Now, he had already put on a wrong face. Mom, don't balance Olivia. I thought she looked unwell, so I asked her a few questions. It seems like she's still holding a grudge against me. That's why she lost her cool in the heat of the moment. His act worsened her gastric. Nonsense, she retorted. I asked that out of concern for you. Did I say something else? Daryl put on an innocent face because he knew that she would never repeat what he said. He was shameless, but she needed to protect the Millers' dignity. Olivia finally comprehended what it meant by, like mother, like son. How could the son be a gentleman when his mother was otherwise? Daryl had fully mastered Jessica's tricks. He played the victim card to cause a misunderstanding, incurring the public's wrath. Jessica began whining. I know that you look down on the both of us because of how we came this far. But your parents-in-law have long divorced. Daryl is one of the Millers. How could you do this to him? Mrs. Miller is right. Talking about this, the unloved one is the homewrecker. Let alone the fact that Mr. Miller Sr. has been divorced for so many years. I heard that Olivia's an orphan, and her family was announced bankrupt a long time ago. I wonder how she won Mr. Ethan's heart. She could be a vixen. What right does she have to look down on others? People were throwing mud at Olivia. She wanted to say something, but her stomach hurt like hell. Had it not been for the blush on her cheeks, her pale complexion could have surprised the others. Daryl added fuel to the fire. Mom, don't blame her. After what has happened to Ethan, it's understandable that she's feeling this way. It's just a glass of water anyway, not acid. It's nothing a man like me should be afraid of. The voices of reprimand became louder. Mr. Daryl, you and Mrs. Miller Sr. are too kind. That's why you were bullied for so many years. Jessica nestled in Kenneth's arms, whining, Kenny, I think we should get out of here. The people here have no respect for us. Kenneth, who had heard this kind of remark lots of times, was sick of it. Still, he looked coldly at Olivia to protect his wife's dignity. Apologize.